Putin is slowly realizing that he's not safe anywhere inside his own country. Russia is now facing a massive self-inflicted failure, one that can't be blamed on a Ukrainian drone or missile. Last night, 100,000 Russians lost power across the far east of Siberia, over 4,000 miles from Ukraine. A total blackout. The kind of darkness that shows what happens when a government spends billions on war and forgets to keep the lights on at home. The irony is brutal. As Russian cities go dark, the government is raising electricity prices to squeeze another 160 billion rubles out of its citizens. That desperation is a window into a collapsing system. 6 Russian regions are now on the brink of budget failure. A slow-motion implosion proving that it's not NATO destroying Russia, it's Vladimir Putin's own incompetence. It all began when 100,000 Russians suddenly found themselves plunged into darkness. From the first moments, confusion spread like wildfire. Some suspected sabotage, others believed there had been an explosion. To understand how bizarre this is, look at the map. The blackout happened roughly 7,000 kilometers, more than 4,000 miles from the Ukrainian border. That distance alone keeps Putin awake at night. How could a city so far from the war zone just lose power? Was it Ukraine, or was it something else? We know it wasn't a drone or a missile. If it had been, Russian radar systems would have detected it, and Moscow's state media would be broadcasting it non-stop. But when you watch the footage carefully, you can see a bright flash of light in the sky right before the entire city goes dark. Even the Russian media has been forced to cover it, because the visuals are too striking to ignore. The problem is, Putin has no proof. No evidence points to Ukraine. That leaves him only one target to blame: NATO. By now, it's easy to predict the Kremlin's next line. Putin will likely claim that back in 1991, NATO promised the Soviet Union that they would make sure every island and corner of Russia had electricity, and now that promise is broken. Therefore, by Russian logic, they must invade Kazakhstan next. It's the same circular reasoning that's defined Russian politics for decades. Blame the West for everything, even a blackout in Siberia. But jokes aside, this isn't the first time Russian cities have gone dark this month. 2 other major blackouts happened recently. One hit Belgorod, a city right on the border with Ukraine. The other struck Moscow itself. A region of the Russian capital went dark not because of an attack, but according to local officials, due to sabotage. That word keeps appearing in Russian reports, an easy label for any failure that can't be explained. Now, the authorities in Siberia are saying the cause of this new blackout is unknown. The investigation is still ongoing. And that led to one of the funniest viral tweets of the month. Ukrainians should name their drones cause unknown. That way, whenever a refinery explodes, Russia will have to declare that it went down because of cause unknown. It's the kind of humor that hits too close to home for Moscow. That's how absurd the situation has become. Even Putin's meetings now feel like scenes from a confused comedy skit. Imagine his advisors trying to explain the blackout, and it sounds like this. Who are you? You! No, not me. You. Yes, I am you. Just answer the damn question. Who are you? I have told you. Are you deaf? No, you are blind. I'm not blind. You are blind. That is what I just said. A government trapped in its own circular logic, blaming enemies that don't exist while its own system collapses. To be fair, we can't say for certain whether Ukraine had anything to do with this incident. But President Zelensky did say something interesting earlier this month that made many Russians nervous. On October 8th, exactly 20 days ago, Zelensky gave a public statement admitting that he had approved new plans for asymmetrical responses to Russian attacks on Ukrainian cities. His exact words were, "I had a good meeting today with Vasyl Maluk, the head of the security service of Ukraine, regarding our operations. I agreed with the service on some plans, our asymmetrical responses to the Russian war. We also talked about the results of our soldiers serving in the Special Operations Center and the security service. They are fighting at the front together with other components of the defense forces, in particular the Pokrovsk front and other sections of the front. So while we don't know if this blackout was part of Ukraine's new strategy, the symbolism is powerful." Whether or not Kyiv was involved, one man still deserves full credit for leaving 100,000 Russians in darkness, and that's Vladimir Putin. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter who caused the blackout. The only reason Russians are suffering at all is because Putin started a war he simply cannot afford. Take a look at this. Recent reports show that 6 Russian regions have almost exhausted their financial reserves and are now on the brink of bankruptcy. When this data came out last week, several regions had only 2 or 3 days worth of funds left to pay for essential services. Imagine that entire regions are running out of money to pay workers, hospitals, and infrastructure costs. That economic collapse is directly linked to the failures we're seeing inside Russia today. The pattern is clear. Just like Russian weapons decaying in the field, Russian cities are falling apart at home. Putin no longer has the money to maintain the infrastructure that keeps society functioning. In some regions, local governments have already started cutting corners. Maintenance projects are being delayed, and the elevator replacements in high-rise buildings have been slashed. It's the same neglect repeated across the country. As the late comedian Norm Macdonald once said, "It's all part of a plan by city officials to have a huge disaster." Sadly, that line feels like a prophecy in Putin's Russia. The economy is deteriorating so fast that even Russian newspapers, usually loyal to the Kremlin, are starting to sound alarmed. One outlet described the situation as balancing on the verge of an all-industry collapse. That's no exaggeration, it's their actual headline. The contradiction is staggering. The Russian government somehow finds money to develop nuclear-powered cruise missiles, but can't afford basic infrastructure. According to Moskovsky Komsomolets, while the central bank recently lowered its key interest rate from 17% to 16.5%, that tiny drop won't make the lives of Russians easier. It merely gives the economy a little more air, if only cautiously. Another outlet, Megazeta, reported that the industrial sector is somewhere between stagnation and decline, with debt payments reaching historic highs. The Center for Macroeconomic Analysis and Short-Term Forecasting, one of Russia's top economic institutions, confirmed that price increases have begun accelerating again, despite the central bank's tighter policies. Commerce, another major publication, found that between January and September, the number of new Russian and international brands entering the market fell by 37.5% year-on-year. The main reasons: a fall in consumer purchasing power and reduced access to credit. That's the real picture of Putin's stable economy. Industries in decline, consumers broke, and no investors left to save the market. But instead of fixing the problem, the Kremlin is doing what it always does, taxing its people even harder. To scrape another 160 billion rubles, the government has announced higher electricity prices. And to make matters worse, the Russian Ministry of Energy blamed ordinary citizens for the rising cost of gasoline, saying people are buying too much fuel. Its economy turned upside down. Next week, Putin might say grocery prices are rising because Russians just keep on eating. Under his logic, everything is the people's fault, never the government's. The good Tsar can never make a mistake. But things have become so bad that even state-run television has been ordered to sound polite when covering bad news. So instead of saying fuel prices have risen, Russian anchors now report, breaking news: gasoline has not dropped in price today. It's not satire, it's an actual broadcast. One anchor announced cheerfully, "Gasoline still hasn't gotten any cheaper." Another replied, "Yeah, well, we've got a few issues over here." That's what passes for journalism in Russia now, pretending a price hike is good news because at least it didn't get worse. A positive spin on national collapse. But since Russia likes to turn bad news into good, let's try it their way. Putin's 3-day special military operation is going perfectly. The Russian army has just completed day 1 for the 1,000th time. When day 2 finally begins, we'll be sure to report it. Behind the jokes, though, is a grim reality. Russia's economic foundation is cracking under the weight of its war. Every blackout, every failed infrastructure project, every unpaid salary traces back to the same root cause: a dictator who chose conquest over competence. Putin can build missiles, but not maintain power grids. He can threaten the West, but can't keep hospitals open in his own cities. As the lights go out across Siberia, Russians are beginning to see the truth. Their suffering isn't caused by NATO or Ukraine. It's caused by a system that burns through its own people just to keep one man's pride intact. That's why these blackouts matter. They're not just electrical failures. They're symbols of a decaying empire, one flickering bulb at a time. Putin wanted to show the world that Russia could stand up to the West. Instead, he's shown that it can't even stand up on its own 2 feet. The blackout in Siberia wasn't just darkness, it was a preview of Russia's future if this war continues. And the question now is simple: how long can Putin keep blaming the world before his own people stop believing him?